Welcome to this pitching session on the Development Bank for Resilient Prosperity. What we will do is I will give a couple of minutes and then I will pass the floor to my colleague who will make the formal presentation. But I just want to put this in a little context. What is the Development Bank for Resilient Prosperity about? We have three key problems in the world. One is global inequities. The second is ecological instability that everybody talks about, climate change. And the third is a failed multilateralism. And for small island developing states, this maps into three key problems: inadequate voice and representation, lack of access to finance, and the third is an inability or inadequacy to bring vulnerability and resilience into the frameworks that we use when we talk about development. So, what this bank is about is to focus on SIDS, in particular, small island developing states, to give them more voice, to generate access to finance, and to integrate the peculiarities of vulnerability and resilience into the frameworks that we use. So we have something that is customized, specific to SIDS, for SIDS, controlled by SIDS. So that's the essence. And let me pass over to my colleague to make the presentation. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Leon, and good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. And very quickly, what is the Development Bank for Resilient Prosperity? And as Dr. Leon said, this is a development bank built by small island developing states for small island developing states. So in 2023, the small island developing countries were going through a process to map out what the next 10 years would look like. And during that process, particularly in August 2023 at a Cabo Verde meeting, it was realized that over the last 10 years, a number of things that was set out in that 10-year strategy document was not achieved. And the question was asked why? Was it because of capacity? Was it because of lack of projects? Was it because of the need to train more human resources? And the common theme was we needed more financing for small island developing countries. We needed to have a dedicated system just for us. Yes, a number of small island developing states are part of multilateral and regional development banks, but they only form a fraction of that membership. And the group agreed that what you needed to have was a combined bank cross different regions. So sometimes when people hear SIDS, they think of Caribbean. But we have small island developing states in the Pacific, in the Atlantic Ocean, in the South China Sea, and yes, in the Caribbean as well. So it really spans global. And the suggestion was made that we needed to have a SIDS bank, a multilateral development bank specifically to address SIDS. So instead of asking the existing institutions to address our needs and to carve out financing for us, how about we have our own institution built by us that serves us? And again, how do we amplify our voices? We have seen in a lot of global discussions, we hear about emerging economies, we hear of least developed countries, but we don't hear a lot about the small island developing states. And the fact is that a lot of the small island developing states, because of how they're categorized as high middle income countries, they're often pushed to the side, but they still rank in terms of low resilience and high vulnerability. And the DBRP aims to tackle several things to amplify the voice of SIDS, making sure they're at the table, to let you know these are the challenges that they face and how they should be addressed. The DBRP is there to tackle the global challenges in multilateralism. And let's be honest, in 2023 and now in 2025, the world looks very different. The geopolitics, let's not underestimate that. The fact that ODA will be reduced drastically, and a lot of these small island developing states are key beneficiaries of that ODA. But because the ODA is reduced or stopped, that doesn't mean that their development needs come to a stop. It means that we now need to look at other avenues. And I think that the bank now becomes even more important or more critical. And that's why we need strategic partnerships and strategic partnerships that emphasize nature based assets. So, our oceans, our mangroves, our wetlands, even the air we breathe, that all is considered a nature based asset, including our plants, our animals, and our ecosystem services. And this bank, sometimes we talk about it as a SIDS bank or the nature bank, because what we're saying is that it is a nature preserving economy. That's what we're looking at. How do we preserve and how do we maintain ecological stability while we focus on development? They cannot be divorced from each other. And we believe that by integrating the assets into financial planning, we're not just supporting development, but we are looking at sustainable, resilient pathways to prosperity. And sometimes people think that you have to do one without the other. But what we are promoting is a systems approach. We're saying that development must be sustainable and it must lead to resilient pathways to prosperity by focusing on regenerative living. Okay. Oh, okay. Part of the bank will focus on the beyond GDP vision. And a lot of times we hear about that when you look at the wealth of a country, it is done in terms of GDP, that measurement. But we're saying that now we must go beyond that. It is the totality of the system. We need to focus on achieving net zero commitments by 2050. Also, in this 10-year document that I mentioned in the very beginning, it on the strategy for small island developing states, it mentions the need to have a mature and integrated global carbon market. And that document is the Antigua and Barbuda Agenda for SIDS. And part of the bank's mandate is to really bring that financing and to bring that structure to what the global carbon market would mean for small island developing states. Our focus, access to finance. So a lot of times we hear discussions about banks being set up or funds being set up or monies being pledged. But we always ask, are the most vulnerable countries and communities receiving those monies? Can they get access to them? Is it affordable? And we realize that this is not just another bank, but we have to make sure that the countries have access to finance, they have representation, and very important is that resilience building that has to be incorporated in all of our projects. For the last few years, we've heard a lot of talk about the need to reform the global financial architecture. And sometimes people speak about that as it's once we get that reform, that means that the whole system will now serve everybody. But we all know that if you have a system, sometimes it doesn't serve everybody the same way. And therefore, we cannot rely on that system and those reforms or wait for those reforms to take place in order to address the problem. And we're saying that through the DBRP, the inadequate global financial support, the high cost of capital, the climate shocks, and economic instability will be addressed. What's our solution? Resilience building investments, private sector partnerships. A lot of times when we speak about the private sector, we speak about them as residual. They come on board when governments may not have enough money to support a project. But we're saying let them come to the table as an equal player with the government, with philanthropies, with civil society. Three things very quickly that make the DBRP different from any financial institution that's there. Tailored financial instruments for SIDS. So you may have innovative financial instruments, but are they tailored for the group of countries that you want to serve? And what we're saying is that through the DBRP, these financial instruments will be tailored specifically for them, and it will be mission driven with private sector partnerships. Two, democratic governance and stronger SIDS representation. So, all of that forms part of the reforms that are taking place with the global financial architecture, where we say some countries have louder voices than others, some countries have more control than others. And we're saying that with this institution, built by SIDS for SIDS, the governance arrangements are designed in a way that their voices will be heard within their own institution. It will not be drowned out. And then an integrated systems approach to development and ecological stability. The two must come together, they're not separate. How will the DBRP be financed is a question that we get all the time. How will the bank be capitalized? And of course, in one bucket, you have sovereign nations, and that will be done through capital subscriptions and beneficiaries. Two, another bucket, and this is a bucket that we don't hear a lot in the MDB world when it comes to capitalization of institutions, global family offices, and philanthropic organizations. And we all know that a number of philanthropic organizations, they have a special focus on, let's say, impact investment. And we must bring them to the table to assist with that capitalization. Then our private sector actors, again, key players. And when it comes to public goods such as renewable energy, sustainable development, and all the sectors that we want to look at, the private sector, they're key players, and therefore they must be involved in whatever structure we set up. I think sometimes the clicker thinks I'm moving too quickly. Strategic partnerships and collaboration. Again, we cannot do this alone. So I've spoken a lot about small island developing states, but this is not a small island developing states only an initiative, but it must be done with other partners. FICS is a typical example. It's a coalition of public development banks. FICS is a strategic partner. Other MDBs are strategic partners. National development banks, and my colleague Dr. Leon will speak some more about that. Academia, they will be critical, especially because we are now going into an area that still needs a lot of research, natural capital, and academia will play a key role in how we drive that particular area forward. The private sector, global family offices, and we cannot forget the countries that we serve. See, I told you sometimes I'm a little bit too ambitious, so the clicker doesn't move as quickly as I would like to. I will skip this because we spoke about this quite a bit. But essentially, this is what we call our policy framework that uniquely integrates debt sustainability and investment growth. So last year, May 2024, at the FICS International Conference in Antigua and Barbuda, we had the announcement of the bank. And since then, we have had 9 countries sign on to say, I support this initiative. I want to work with you to design and develop this new bank. And we have here the list of countries, and you would notice that this is not limited to one region. We have the Pacific, we have a Latin American country that's not a SID, but is a friend of SID, Panama, and then we have some other countries within the Caribbean region. Where will the bank be located? Because it's covering multi regions, it will have offices in various parts. Because the idea is that you want to promote ownership amongst the membership. You want to ensure that you are not just focused in one area, but instead you have the growth and capacity in each of the regions that we will serve. And this speaks to some of what we're doing now. The operationalization of the bank. So right now we're in what we call the incubation phase. We're having pivotal discussions and engagements, which is what we have spent the last 9 months doing and what we will continue to do. And this will all lead up to one, the incorporation of this treaty-based organization, and then the formal operational opening of doors being announced at COP30, so that's December, with doors opening in 2026. So by the next FICS summit, we will be here with an institution that is fully established by treaty. And I now want to invite Dr. Leon to provide the last few slides as we wrap up to show how we integrate national development banks into this initiative.